Sky Fox giving us a new look at the truck the gunman used as a weapon to ram into the building before setting the fire that left the church a total loss. Authorities confirming today 4 people were killed and everyone is now accounted for following the shooting and fire. And thanks for joining us. I'm Taryn Asher.
And I'm Ruth Raj coming to you from right outside of that church. As you say, Taryn, the best news even on this dark day is that everyone is accounted for. We have team coverage tonight, beginning with Fox 2's Jessica Dupnack. But before we get to that, we'll tell you right now that Ingrid Kelly is live talking about how striking nurses went to go help with the efforts that needed to be done yesterday. Also, our own Camila Miri is talking about the suspect and what we know about him. But we do begin tonight with Fox 2's Jessica Dupnack. She has the latest on the investigation. Jessica.
Rube, we were at that 12:30 press conference here at Grand Blanc Township PD, where investigators from the locals up to the feds, even Governor Gretchen Whitmer was there. And I think the biggest question in the room was why? Why did this attack happen? And investigators almost defiant in saying that their focus now is on those victims, and they will continue to fill us in on motive later. And we too want to focus on those victims, including 77-year-old John Bond, a local man from Grand Blanc who was shot and killed. We had the opportunity to speak with his wife earlier today. She told us a little bit about John. She said that he is a loving father and grandfather to 10 grandkids. He is a Navy veteran serving time in Vietnam, and in his older age, he liked to spend time with his wife, going to dinner. They golfed. He was also a big train enthusiast as well as a history buff. Now, his wife told me that yesterday morning before they went to church in Grand Blanc, or before he went to church, he was all dressed up in his outfit. She remembers seeing him by the door, and she said that he was worried about shining his shoes and getting a shoe shine. And he told his wife, "I love you." Then he went to church, as I said, like so many hundreds of others did on a Sunday morning, and he was shot and killed in that brutal attack. And what he said to folks as they were trying to pull him out of the church, they told him, he said, "Please call my wife." Now, we continue to follow these stories of heroism that come out of the church, local law enforcement trying to restore law and order here in Genesee County, as well as a sense of calm, also met by words with the governor earlier today at Grand Blanc Township. Let's take a listen.
As a state, we know the pain of this too well. We've seen gun violence in our schools, stores, parades, festivals, and our houses of worship. These are places that we go to feel connected, to feel safe, to be together. But today, this place has been shattered by bullets and broken glass. And this might be a familiar pain, but it hurts all the same. Every time. We cannot keep living our lives like this.
The governor going on to say, please temper down the rhetoric, especially as they look for a motive in this case. But we can't help but ignore that the shooter, a 40-year-old, a local man, a Marine veteran who served time in Iraq, that he chose the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on purpose. The FBI, who is leading this investigation, said that he chose that specifically. The why is still very unclear, and we're hoping to learn more in the coming days. All of this not to sensationalize this attack and focus on the shooter, but to understand and help as part of the grieving process as we move forward. I'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, Jessica, you know, I'm listening to you talk just down the road from where I'm standing near this church right now, where obviously this is the crime scene. And yes, it's a place where so many people lost their lives, and you're telling those stories with such beauty and empathy. But the question does remain, why would someone do this? When you hear the defensiveness that you speak of from investigators, piecing this together, the family wants to know how someone could be driven to such hate against one group.
That's right, Roop, and we do know that this 40-year-old shooter, that he has shown signs in the past of PTSD for his time in the Marines. He also showed some erratic behavior to friends in the 48 hours leading up to this. And we know that in these types of attack, 2/3 of the time there are signs of this happening in the days and weeks leading up. But I think the disconnect that we've learned in so many of these mass shootings is, where do friends and family turn when you see these signs of maybe erratic behavior? What do you do to intercept it so we never have to report on something like this again?
Yeah, we'll be talking about that with a therapist tonight on The Pulse at 11:30, but this is something that needs to continue to be discussed, and of course the big question is why. We'll be getting to that hopefully in the days to come. Jessica Dupnack for us live tonight. Taryn, we're going to send things back to you from Grand Blanc Township for now.
I thank you both for that. Well, less than a week before the shooting, the gunman called Mormons, quote, the Antichrist. He made those comments to a man running for Burton City Council. And Fox News' Camille Mary spoke with that city council candidate, and she's joining us now live with more. And Camille, when he first spoke with this individual, what went through his mind? What did he think he was dealing with?
Well, I mean, he says that the shooter very quickly started telling him his whole life story about how he was in the Marines, how he was in Iraq, how he had a drug addiction at one time, how he moved to Utah and started dating a woman there. He moved there to plow snow. The man running for city council was perplexed by all of it. I'm going to show you the house. This is the house where the shooter lived, and this is the driveway where he stood and talked to him for 20 minutes or so. After all those topics, he says that the shooter brought up religion. Take a listen.
The intro question of what do you think about Mormons, essentially the very final discussion was Mormons are the Antichrist. He has a very distinctive truck. He has those two big flags. Like, it's something that you see, that you would notice, and nothing indicated a week ago that he was preparing to turn that into a missile. There was a lot of thought to this, a tremendous amount of thought, and I have a response. I mean, if he would have indicated any sort of violence, I have a responsibility to share that. What he said was anger, but it was not, I mean, it was animus, but there was nothing reflected of an intent, because again, I have a responsibility. If there was like, I am going to do this, I would have been making calls.
Yeah, Chris Johns just shocked, saying all of this is just so surreal. He was actually in his own church yesterday morning when he heard about the shooting and the fire, and he started watching the news, and then he saw the shooter's picture, and he figured out immediately that this was the guy who he spent all this time talking to. And then afterwards, he called the FBI, he called police, he told them everything he knew. And again, you heard him say that if he had any indication at all that this would have happened, he would have called police right away. But he just thought this was someone who had strong beliefs about a religion, but wasn't necessarily planning to do anything like this. Reporting live in Burton, Camille Mary, Fox 2 News.
Well, Camille, it's come out that this individual had no connection to this LDS church. It was just Mormons in general, and then it just sadly all these people were victimized because of their religion.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that Chris Johns told us about was that when he was in Utah and he was dating that woman, that he had some interaction with the Mormon church, and that he wanted to become part of the church, but that he had a lot of tattoos on his arms and that they didn't approve of that. So that was something, a little indication that he does have, you know, basically a history with the church. Whether or not he was a member, it really doesn't sound like it, but when he was in Utah, he definitely was familiar with the church. He knew people in the church, and obviously, as you heard Chris Johns say, he's calling them the Antichrist. So just a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, we know the feds are also looking into this as well to see what other information they can gather. But Camille, we appreciate the update. Well, the horrific incident in Grand Blanc Township leaving many wondering what can be done to keep church communities safe. It comes as incidents of violence against places of worship have been on the rise. We spoke with the CEO of the Fortis Group, which provides security for local churches.
Understanding where our vulnerabilities are is the first step. And the second step is then taking some measures to close those gaps. Why not leverage our community? And a lot of churches do. They'll reach within their congregations, within their communities, and they'll use them as a voluntary force, right, to kind of create these safety teams.
Well, churches can work with consultants to devise an emergency response plan, including first aid training and recognizing suspicious behavior. Roop?
You know, sadly, this road behind me, Taryn, is McCandlish Road. This is the last road that so many people actually drove on before heading to the church behind us. And of course, when the shooting and the fires started, the first people here to help within a very short time, first responders. That includes nurses, some who actually were striking at the time, but rushed in to help.
And our coverage continues right now with that part of the story. And Fox 2's Ingrid Kelly joins us. And, you know, Ingrid, obviously these nurses, it's their call to duty. They know what they're passionate about their jobs, and they just did it.
That's right. That's right. You know, these nurses, they say helping is really in their DNA. So when this tragedy took place, they were not thinking about that strike. They wanted to help. And for them, that meant all hands on deck. But they say their hands were pushed away.
We're being pushed away by Henry Ford. We want to be in there, we want to be helping, and there's babies. I'm sorry, I take my kids preciously. I take every life preciously, but there were ER nurses, there were other staff that are currently on strike, that know that hospital, that know how that hospital works, that can provide the care that they needed at this time. It was a mass casualty. They needed the help. They needed all hands on deck, and they were pushing the nurses that were on strike away.
Here live, you know, Henry Ford is responding, and they sent a message which reads in part, because of the indefinite strike, we'd already made alternative staffing arrangements. Henry Ford Genesee Hospital was appropriately staffed Sunday, and team members were able to care for the patients from the church tragedy without additional help. Now, for security and patient privacy purposes, striking team members do not have access to our systems. They also add, we look forward to continuing negotiations, but respectfully, we ask, we do not use this dark day for our community as a bargaining tool. And of course, if you want to read that full statement, go to fox2detroit.com. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Ingrid, for that report. Well, also today, Michigan State Police say a 21-year-old was arrested after trying to bypass a barricade set up near the scene of the mass shooting. Police handcuffed the man shortly after. Officers say he drove a red sedan around barriers near Holly and McCandlish roads. Witnesses say they saw what appeared to be a long gun removed from the vehicle. So far, there's no word on any possible charges. Well, make sure you stay with Fox 2 News for continuing coverage of this church shooting. We'll have more from Grambling Township just ahead. And remember, we're keeping you updated online and Fox Local, on air, and at fox2detroit.com. Well, still ahead, we'll take you to Novi for the latest following that massive water break, a main break on 14 Mile Road, while the boil water order has been reissued for several communities when we come back.